Members of Parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, all following this meeting via social media, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to this public meeting of Parliament, urgent public meeting number 19 for today, Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. At this time, I want to give a special welcome to the Honorable Minister of Justice, Ms. Natalie Tacklin, and her support staff here this afternoon. We have established a quorum of 11 members. I invite you to stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notice of absence from the member Doran and notice of lateness from the member York. Does any member of Parliament have notifications at this point in time? I don't get that indication at this time, so we continue with the agenda point for this public meeting. The agenda point for today's public meeting is deliberations with the Minister of Justice on the escalating state of crime, the deteriorating conditions at the Point Blanche Prison, and the vulnerable state of the Justice Ministry. This document, the request for this meeting, is registered on the IS 1050 of this parliamentary year, and it is dated May 16th. The meeting was requested by the members Ottley, Lacroes, and Lewis. Before going over to the agenda point, as this is a public meeting, allow me to remind all that the possibility for interruptions exists. As always, I also remind the members of Parliament that it is the chairperson who will allow interruptions, and that the interruptions, the lectern to be used for this purpose, should be used to seek clarification, to challenge its assertions, or contribute additional information. And they should always consist of brief remarks or questions, however, without any introduction. I want to go now over to the agenda point. As I mentioned earlier, on May 16th of this year, Parliament received a letter registered on the IS 1050 from the members of Parliament Ottley, Lacroes, and Lewis with a request that an urgent public meeting of Parliament be convened to discuss the aforementioned agenda point. And the presence of the Minister of Justice was also requested. So hence this meeting today. At this time, I would ask if any of the requesters would like to briefly elucidate their request for this meeting, and I see that MP Lacroes would like to make use of that opportunity, so I give him the floor to briefly elucidate the request for this meeting. MP Lacroes.
A blessed afternoon, Madam Chair Lady. Thank you. SG, the Minister of Justice and her support staff, Chief Carl John and Mr. Carty, my fellow members of Parliament, those in the Tribune, and all those watching on social media. Madam Chair Lady, we thought that this was an urgent matter. First, we'd like to commend the staff of Parliament for actually taking it as such and scheduling this meeting as soon as possible. Seeing the things that are going on and living now, I think it was extremely important that the minister would come and give the members of Parliament whom do not have all the answers to exactly what is going on and where we're going from here on. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Lacroes. And for those words and the acknowledgement that this meeting was, and of course, we received the cooperation from the minister, because that's always an important aspect of being able to convene what is determined to be an urgent meeting by the Chair of Parliament based on the request from members of Parliament. So thank you, MP Lacroes, for your introduction to the request made by the members. And at this time, I therefore will now give the floor to the Honorable Minister of Justice, Ms. Natalie Tacklin, for her opening remarks and presentation, which I realize the Minister has to make. So, Minister, at this time, I offer you the floor. Yes.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Good afternoon to the honorable members of Parliament, and of course to everybody watching and listening at home or via the radio, YouTube, wherever you may be. I did find it important, even though we're very much still in the midst of a crisis, to come in and update Parliament on what steps we've taken in the prison since the fire broke out last week, Wednesday, and also what our plans are going from here. I also sent an extensive 4-page letter to Parliament on Friday afternoon, which I believe was circulated to all members, but I thought I would build a little bit on that and walk you through it, and of course then provide any new updates that we have since Friday. So we've put together, it's just one slide, a short timeline, and of course I want to say I also at 4 p.m. have another crisis team meeting, so let's see how this goes, because as I've said, we are very much in the middle of resolving an active crisis. So I'll say just a little bit again. Last week, Wednesday, May 14th, I received a call from the prison around 3:45 in the afternoon, asking me for the police to come and provide assistance because inmates were refusing to re-enter into their cells. We, at that point, immediately tried to mobilize the ATE, the arrest team from KPSM. Some of them were with the Dutch Prime Minister at the time, so it took a little bit of mobilizing. But very quickly, from 3:45 by 4 o'clock, then the next report that we got out of the prison was that there was a fire which had escalated. At that point, we then dispatched fire and an ambulance to the scene, and around 6 p.m. they were able to out that fire. And of course, I don't think we want to go into too many details, but immediately, at that point, around 4 o'clock, I immediately instituted a crisis team, which comprised of myself, members of KPSM, the prison management, and the public prosecutor's office, to then mobilize to see what the situation was and how we needed to handle that. So we were operating out of the offices of KPSM for quite some time, and around 9:30 at night, when we got an all clear from the prison, we then moved up there to continue our operations there. And we were at the prison until 3 in the morning, trying to get everybody back in there, at least for a place to sleep, because what we did immediately know is that it was not an option for the individuals in that wing where it was affected to re-enter their cells that night. So we quickly, had contact with the Marines. We got cots from the Marines, which they helped us to bring up to Point Blanche. And then, of course, we needed to look for a space that they could go in and, of course, then make that assessment of which groups can go together in one room. So we did all of these things as safely as possible with the information that we had at the time. And by 3 a.m., everybody was able to be in a certain part of the prison where they would not be affected by the smoke or anything like that. So then, that takes us through very much, Wednesday was getting through the night and assessing what the damage actually was, because, of course, we couldn't see at night what the extent was of the damage of the fire. On Thursday morning, right away, we mobilized the Ministry of Romy, the fire department. We also brought in an engineer from UNOPS. As we know, UNOPS is tasked with the construction of the new facility, which we're currently in the middle of a tender procedure, actually, for the construction of the new facility. Their lead engineer was on the island, also went in. So we got initial reports on Thursday telling us, well, structurally, the building seems fine. Now it's just a matter of cleaning up and cleaning out those cells. So we started that immediately on Thursday as well. I reached out to my Kingdom partners, and I need to add that we also had forensics on Thursday as well, because, of course, there was an act of arson that took place in the prison, and we are investigating that as well. So there are multiple investigations. One, and what was our response? within the prison system, or how did we respond to the incident. But then besides that, there are also criminal aspects of what occurred that day, and these are being investigated by the police along with the prosecutor's office. Thursday, we had so we understood structurally everything seems okay. I also reached out to my kingdom partners. I made calls to the ministers of justice in Aruba and Curacao to see how they would be able to assist us. That evening, Aruba very quickly mobilized 5 guards that we were able to make use of. I need to add that this operation has been putting a very hard strain on our services. It's taking a lot out of CAPISM. It's taking a lot out of the prison. We're using VKS. We're also using immigration officers that used to work in the prison. We're really all coming together. And in that line, on Friday, I actually sent, or I think it was on Saturday, I actually sent a note of thanks to the police, and I've been really reaching out to everybody because I understand, our frustrations with the LBAs and the placement processes within the ministry, and you see that despite all of those things, that everybody showed up. We all showed up as a ministry, and I think that what this crisis has shown is the strength and resilience of this ministry and our ability to come together and work together in the best interest of the country and safety and security. So saying that, because we now have groups in different places, it also means that we need more manpower to be able to safely conduct this operation. So this is why also we really needed those guards from Aruba, and they came on Friday. So on Thursday as well, I also sat with the Inmates Association to explain to them what was going on, what we were doing, what the plans were, and also to talk to them, of course, about what some of the grievances were that led to this situation. So, we had those discussions, and from there, I'm trying to think, that pretty much covers Thursday. We started initial cleanup, kind of looking into debris that needed to come out of that space. And then on Friday, we received that support from Aruba, and we also received additional Marines that came in from Aruba as well. And we started an initial cleanup, as I said. In the weekend, what we did was also try to make an assessment of, okay, but once the space is cleaned, is it safe for inmates to return back into that space? So we had the Inspectorate of Health from the Ministry of VSA come in, some inspectors, and they advised that we actually should do a more specialized type of cleaning to get out all that soot and dust, because the minute that you start peeling paint off the walls after a fire, it emits particles, and that could be hazardous. So based on that assessment, we then had to look for a company to be able to do that type of cleaning. We were able to find a local company, and now we also have some other companies making extra assessments so that we can compare some cost estimates. Because at the end of the day, the biggest priority for us right now is, of course, the safety of the inmates, the safety of the staff, and being able to return back to the cells or return back to quote-unquote normalcy as quickly as possible. So again, the situation is very fluid because constantly, new things come up. We have 2 additional guards coming from Curacao tomorrow to assist us as well. And because we're also in a busy time on the island in terms of events, and the regular day-to-day goes on as well. So we're also in the middle right now of also making arrangements to fly in 14 officers from Curacao and Aruba tomorrow to also assist in our operations, both at the prison and, of course, with the general safety and public order. Yep. We also, in addition to that, are trying to utilize some expertise through different networks to advise us on longer-term plans as well. So we have a safety and security expert coming in from the UK tomorrow, within the UNOPS network, that can help to also assess, have feet on the ground for us to try to navigate all of this. On Sunday, I also went, to the back, quote-unquote, in the prison, and I spoke directly to inmates myself. Besides just speaking to the Inmates Association, I found it important to inform them, to take them along in this process, and to explain what is going on. I also, spoke to them at length about their situations, their cases, things that they really wanted me to understand, and I think we had very fruitful discussions. So we're continuing to communicate, because that's really Really the key here is making sure that everybody has information. For now, of course, we've had to take the unfortunate decision to suspend certain privileges for inmates. We are looking into how, as quickly as possible, we can resume some type of contact with family, be that through digital means or finding a way that is safe within the current structure to have visitation or a family day or something like that. We're actively looking at those things. So, honestly, we're constant. It's a constant 24/7 operation at this point, and it has our full attention. I haven't stopped working on this since Wednesday afternoon when I got the first call, and we're taking it very seriously. And again, for me, I really want to restore again that quote unquote normalcy into that institution as quickly as possible. And then from there, of course, we go into a phase of lessons learned and how we can tackle this differently. But before I close off these brief remarks and an update, I really want to stress again my personal thanks and gratitude for this entire Justice Ministry and the entire Justice chain, and the way that everybody has showed up. And I continue to engage in these conversations directly with staff whenever I see them, be it at the station which felt like my house at one point from Wednesday to Sunday, and even up at the Point Blanche Prison to really understand these issues and look how this government or this Minister of Justice can really try to make changes and make those steps where we have for so long made promises but not been able to follow through on. And then while I'm here, another update that I did want to give is that Batch 13 has been countersigned and is complete and will go out, and that we are in the process, of course, of 14 and 15. And I have ensured all justice workers that that process will not in any way be affected by this crisis in Point Blanche. And I really, that now more than ever, we need to really make sure that we get this done quickly to show our justice workers the respect and appreciation that they deserve. So I think that that's, in a nutshell, the brief update now. We've been putting out press releases daily with any new updates. So there was one that went out yesterday evening as well. So it's really, if there are any additional clarifications or questions from the members of Parliament, I will try to answer those. And another thing I forgot is that just before I came here, I was able to secure 6 places in Bonaire, 2 for females and 4 males. So we'll be making those arrangements once we get out of this meeting to fly out some of the inmates. Again, this is really not the situation we want to be in. We really want to. Right now, we're trying to utilize as much space as we can and keep everybody safe. And but of course, we're really trying to get this done as quickly as possible. So.
Thank you, Minister Natalie Tacklin, for your presentation, your opening presentation on the topic at hand. Members of Parliament, I will adjourn for 2 minutes to allow the members who wish to speak, taking into consideration what the Minister has asked in terms of time. And so I will adjourn for 2 minutes because as this is a public meeting, you will have to indicate that desire to speak on the speakers list. So meeting adjourned for 2 minutes. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. A quick reminder to the members of Parliament, the allotted speaking time in the first round is 20 minutes, and in the second round, 10 minutes. According to the speakers list, I now give the floor to MP Veronica Jansen-Webster. MP Jansen-Webster, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, and good afternoon to everyone listening. I welcome the Justice Minister and her support staff and the members of the Tribune. Good afternoon, and members listening at home. I just wanted to thank the Minister for coming to Parliament and also on such short notice. I think that it's important. Via Parliament, you not only inform the Parliament, but the Minister also informs the public, and everyone wants to know what's going on in Point Blanche. So I thank the Minister. I think that what I was lacking, because I looked at the convocation, there were two other points that we had expected to hear a little bit more about, which was the escalating state of crime and also the vulnerable state of the Justice Ministry, if I look at the convocation correctly. I think that if we could hear at least a little bit on those other two subjects, we would appreciate that, especially for the justice workers. And furthermore, Minister, the only thing I would like to do here now in this first round is to wish you, via Madam Chair, I'd like to wish the Minister much strength in this difficult time. I've been there in crisis, GB after the hurricane, and also the energy crisis that we had in as of June 2024. What happens and what is good is to see that the ministry came together. It would be remiss of me to stand here and not mention, though, that in December, when we had the deliberations on the budget, I did mention the situation in Point Blanche. So it wasn't a huge surprise. And I think that the Justice Committee had been to the prison. We heard the cries and we tried to indicate that. And I know that everyone has been busy, but you know, there were small things and that were already showing. There were some red flags showing. So I think that not only for justice, but for other ministries, that sometimes we need to step in and see the little things, because sometimes just a little grain of sand in your eye will just mess up your whole vision. So I just wanted to illustrate that again. But I do thank the Minister for coming here today. And again, much success. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Veronica Jansen-Webster. The next MP up to speak is MP York.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to the Griffier Minister and her support staff, and honorable colleagues, people in the Tribune, and the viewing public. Minister, I would also like to thank you for making it a priority to not only inform the public, but also informing Parliament in light of the recent crises. Also your support staff as well for making the time to be here with you today. That is something that is sometimes skipped, the informing Parliament and especially informing the public. And I see that you made that, you and your support staff made it a priority to do so today. So commendable, I'd like to commend you on that. Going back to something during your presentation, the Minister, through you, Madam Chair, mentioned the inspection from the health inspector, right? If I put on my engineering hat, I would like to ask the Minister, what about the inspection by a structural assessment, whereas it pertains to VROMI or ICE or any other third party as it pertains to the structure itself? Because after intense heat, we just witnessed what happened in Santo Domingo with things collapsing and seeing that, you know, concrete loses its load-bearing capacity, and we all know what happens to steel under intense temperatures. What about the structure? Because we can clean it up, but it also has negative effects after extreme heat, such as a fire. So my question is, is there a structural assessment planned? Has it already been done? And in the event of it already being done, what were the findings. Additionally to that, the minister mentioned batch 13. Also, I think if I'm a justice worker right now and I finally hear about a new batch 13, I would also like to know when can that be expected. And considering that in other jurisdictions, such as the U.S. Virgin Islands, Jamaica, law enforcement personnel are provided with comprehensive benefits as it pertains to life insurance, duty-specific coverage, mental health support, and family protection, etc. If you were to look back at what just happened in the jail where the staff could have been expected to do certain acts that would have put them in harm, I would like to ask the minister if the minister can clarify what additional insurances or risk coverages, if any, does the current justice staff, in particular the ones in the jail, but you could police and everyone under the same category, what additional insurances do they have or is the minister currently working on? So that would be it for my first round. Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. And I now go over and give the floor to MP Lewis. MP Lewis, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Griffier. Good afternoon to the Minister and her support staff. Good afternoon to the honorable members of Parliament, those in the Tribune, and the listening and viewing public of St. Martin. This thing good. First and foremost, I would like to commend the Minister once again, Madam Chair, on her swift actions in addressing recent developments. However, it is important to note that despite these efforts, the persistently high crime rate remains deeply concerning. Offenders continue to act with a perception that there are little to no consequences to their actions, which undermines public confidence in the justice system, as people are well aware of the limited capacity. While I recognize and commend the strides made by the justice train, I believe a more holistic approach is urgently needed. We must look beyond enforcement and consider the underlying socioeconomic factors, such as lack of opportunity, education, poverty, that often lead individuals to a life of crime. Crime not only affects the economy and the sense of safety, but it also has a profound and lasting impact on our youth and future generations. This raises the key question: what is the holistic strategy of the Council of Ministers in addressing this issue? Have our ministers been actively engaged in this matter? I must highlight a critical issue regarding the immigration status of children born in this country to foreign parents. Upon turning 18, many of these young people find themselves stateless or undocumented, particularly if their parents fail to regularize their legal status during childhood. Without permanent residency or the ability to work legally, they are left in a state of limbo. Research is one of the most valuable tools at our disposal. We should be focused on identifying root causes, exploring long-term solutions, and investing in securing the next generation through opportunities, job creation, education, and counseling. On the matter of crime, I want to specifically highlight the increase in domestic violence. Alarming young men and women are experiencing this from an early age, and our current system does not prioritize such cases unless severe physical harm is evident. As a result, many of these cases are dismissed or delayed. I would also like to mention the high rise in crime in Anguilla, where our port is an open border for anyone leaving Anguilla. As I also noticed, there was a suspect on the loose in St. Martin. I've read it in the news, I stand corrected, where he committed a crime, armed robbery in Angola, and came over at our borders. It is important that we do something in the cooperation with the neighboring islands, as St. Martin is considered a hub that criminals can use to escape the injustices and the criminal activities that they have committed elsewhere. I would like to ask the Minister, through you, Madam Chair, what is being done in terms of awareness, victim support, and case prioritization? What measures are in place for rehabilitating offenders, including anger management and reconciliation programs? On the prison situation, what is the timeline for restoring the damage sustained during the recent prison incident? Has a formal assessment been completed? And if so, what is the next steps? In the interim, what is the contingency plan? Is the ministry's intention to utilize cells on other islands? I've understood that you are in conversations with the other islands and people will be transported. And also, I want to know what are the budgetary implications to this country. Reports have surfaced claiming that prison guards on shift abandoned their post during the incident on the orders of their superior. Can you confirm whether this is accurate? There is speculation that a lapse of insurance coverage may have contributed to the current crisis. Can you confirm whether this is true? And if so, what is being done to rectify this ongoing issue? Can you share the reasons behind the riot? What grievances are led to such a severe escalation? What effects will this have on the proposed $65 million project to restore the prison facility? When is it due to start? Are we still on schedule with the reconstruction of the new prison facility? As your predecessor, I observe a passive approach by the prison interim director in handling serious issues, namely incidents of misconduct by staff, abuse of prisoners, and breach of security. These concerns, also noted by my predecessor, factored into a decision to recommend a change in leadership. You have since reinstated the current prison interim director, who before had, according to me, no leadership experience before serving in an interim capacity. It has been agreed that an evaluation would be necessary before confirming a permanent appointment. Given the recent escalation, Minister, I must ask, and I have personally had a conversation with you pertaining to that matter briefly, and I will stand here on the floor of Parliament because I am not a hypocrite. What was your rationale for reinstating this individual? With these developments, what are your plans moving forward for the prison director function and/or the prison management team on a whole? It is my firm belief that the lives and safety of individuals are too important to subject to political considerations. Strong accountability and proactive leadership is required now, Minister, more than ever. On the stance of the insurance, there has been talks about the insurance for the police officers, which is covered under the Rex Positie, Corps Politie, or Rex Positie van the Politie. And as we know, this entails police officers, immigration officers, and also the law enforcement agency of the Landsrecherche. Through you, Madam Chair, the safety and well-being of our law enforcement officers are critical to maintaining public order and upholding the rule of law. By extension, with this insurance, I'm not only talking about the 3 different agencies, I'm talking about the Justice Ministry now on a whole. Because have you seen the situation? You have seen the situation in the prison. Now, what about the prison guards, for example? What if something have to happen to a custom officer, for example? What is being done when it comes to the insurance that we had for the police officers that falls under the Rechtspositie, so the immigration officers and those at the Landrecherche? These men and women place themselves at risk daily, and it is our duty to ensure they are adequately protected, not just in the line of duty, but also through proper insurance coverage that reflects the unique nature of their work. With that in mind, I would like to pose the following question to the Honorable Minister, through you, Madam Chair. Is the prison facility insured, or have there been talks in getting insured? What is the current status of the insurance, again, that was approved by the government based on Article 114, Chapter 10 of the Rechtspositie Politie? On the basis of the national decrees, I do not know if you have seen an article on the Tribune with the different questions that were posed, and I see it important that I reiterate what was listed as once time permits. Last Wednesday, the Minister of Justice announced publicly that the delays in the national decrees were addressed because SOAB was going to do the validation. In addition, she suggested that her new approach was much better because the justice workers would review their draft decrees first before issuance, and this would reduce the objections. Not on a one-on-one relay, but this is what I understood from it. Be worried, because when I was minister, or the minister who is a lawyer, can convince Parliament that this works to reduce objections against national decrees, we have a problem. When justice workers receive the national decrees, they can always, by law, that is what the decree says, to object. Not because you consulted them means they give up their right, or that you will successfully that you will be successful against them in court when they do object. They can defend that the review was intimidating and they never gave up any of their rights. I will fast forward. When you improve and enhance a procedure, that is what is called continuity. Do not come with a sorry excuse for a failure to continue a process to benefit of the justice workers. I will also mention, as former minister, I created a team to alleviate or to eliminate the one person deciding to validate the entire ministry, seeing that it's one of the biggest ministries, and involved basically nearly every person from their HR, from in the ministry, to have review of the documentation because they work in that department with the individuals. However, I understood this was discontinued. If this is not so, I stand corrected. The question that was posed in this article, Minister, which I think are valid questions that needs answers, how is SOAB getting the data from Loan and Saladis to do the validations? How is SOAB getting access to personal files to verify information for validations? Are data and files leaving the administration building for this validation? Did workers agree for the transfer of files and data to SOAB? Will the HR workers of each division be consulted on these validations, or is SOAB just going to work from placement letters? Who will verify that the placement letters are correct? Who at SOAB has the knowledge about each and every justice department to know that functions and function levels are correct for this validation? What is it going to cost the country for SOAB to do these validations? Is finance going to accept these validations just because SOAB did them? I received word that batch 13 actually was sent back by the governor for rectification. But today I understood from your person that they were co-signed by your person. So thanks for that, Minister. Can you confirm, like I asked you, as I asked you also about the other batches, when are they going to be forthcoming? So you mentioned, I think, batch 14 and probably 15. I would like to know when they're going to be forthcoming. Minister, pertaining to verdicts and previous decisions by judges. Verdicts by judges on individual cases. When will the people receive an answer from the minister on those verdicts? And also the continuation by decisions made by my person as your predecessor and the predecessor before me as their pending items. I would like to know when those decisions are also going to be executed or retracted, as I've seen in the past that many of the decisions that I've made was also retracted. Minister, there is also documentation from the CCSU and the note of toelichting and the overzichtwetgeving. I would like to know if you saw these documents as well when it comes to the insurance of the police officers. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Lewis. The next member of parliament to speak is MP Ottley. MP Ottley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good day to the Honorable Minister of Justice, her support staff, my honorable colleagues, those in the Tribune, the viewing and listening public. I would like to start my first round by thanking all justice workers, emergency team personnel that were involved in getting the riot under control. All the prison guards that were involved getting the riot under control. Even the prisoners that were involved getting the riot under control. I would like to personally thank each and every one of you that was involved in getting this under control, because this could have led to loss of life. Madam Chair, with the escalating rise in crime and recent disaster in the prison, it is deemed imperative to engage with the Minister of Justice to ensure the plans and divisions moving forward. Also, as my colleague stated, we did not hear about the other 2 points, which is the rise in crime and the vulnerable state at this moment of the justice chain. I'd like to start my first line of questioning with the prison fire. My colleague asked, so you can bundle the answer together, what was the cause of the riot? The cause of the riot. Is this issue resolved? Are we in the process of resolving this issue? Is it positive feedback from the prisoners? Also, recently in the media today, a couple minutes ago, we see that there was a disturbance, or there's reports of a disturbance at the Simpson Bay holding cell. Is this true? I won't go into logistics here as to what is taking place, but if it is true, that means there is additional unrest. The minister stated in the presentation that she was notified, through you, Madam Chair, at 4 p.m. What time was the emergency team deployed? I think it was at 5. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would like to know what time was the emergency team deployed? What is the ratio required by international standards or our standards for guards to prisoners? The ratio required of guards to prisoners. What is St. Martin's current ratio from guards to prisoners? How many prisoners were transferred to the Simpson Bay facility? It is also stated that the Simpson Bay facility is not suitable for inmates. And there's reports from 2017. Were there other reports since then, that allow this course of action to be taken for inmates to be transferred there? Simpson Bay was closed because of lack of proper daylight. So the fact that there's inmates there, what steps were taken to prepare this? I understand that it was a riot. I understand that the prison was damaged, through you, Madam Chair, and I understand that actions had to be taken. But however, we still have implications and stuff that needs to be followed. So I would like to know the legal basis for any of these transfers to avoid any court cases, because court cases can come. So I would like to reiterate and echo the sentiments for the public at large, for the ministry, that prisoners are human beings, and St. Martin and the Kingdom are bound to them. Just to name a few, by the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights, the Convention Against Torture, CAT, European Convention on Human Rights, and it goes on and on. During the prison fire, how many prisoners were injured? How many prisoners were burnt? We saw a recent report of a prisoner claiming to be burnt and not receiving proper medical attention, only paracetamol. Is this true or is this false? Family contact was suspended without any legal basis and not promptly restored. Then such actions constitutes violation of the international standards. The Netherlands, including St. Martin, remains internationally accountable for breaches of any human rights. And then we saw an extension of 72 hours. Was this due to a security threat? If not, what is the reason for such action? And the legal basis. So there's a reason, and I would like to know the legal basis for suspending family visit. Overcapacity at the prison. Considering the direct violation of human rights before and after the fire at the prison, what is the short-term plans being put into place to seek alternative to relieve the pressure on the cell's capacity, such like Curacao and Aruba did? The CPT has visited St. Martin numerous times and has standards for the prison. As minister, current minister, are you aware of these recommendations or standards such as cell space, circumstances, hygiene, food, day programs, and medical care? Does the minister have plans due to overcrowding to invoke Article 137 of the Criminal Code to alleviate some of the overcrowding due to capacity of the prison? Article 137, by way of exception of Article 131, first and second paragraph, the Minister of Justice may determine the conditional release that shall take place at an earlier date in connection with a shortage place for execution of custodial sentencing or custodial measures in penal institutions for those who, in view of their total sentence, are proportionally closest to the date of statutory release. A maximum such as reduction may be established by national decree containing general measures. I hear in conversations, in interviews, and even in Parliament, the minister often refers to the prosecutor, through you, Madam Chair, the prosecutor. So what is the role of the prosecutor in pre-sentencing, and what is the role of the prosecutor as it relates to the release after sentencing? Because when I read what I just read, to me the prosecutor has no more jurisdiction after sentencing. So I stand to be corrected. To address prison overcrowding and facility in reintegration for non-violent offenders, St. Martin has implemented an electronic monitoring policy. Is this being used at this moment? Is this policy being used? If so, during your tenure, how many of these you were signed off to alleviate the overcrowding in the prison? In Curacao, they have basically the same criminal procedure codes, but the Curacao implemented a discounted upon sentencing due to the fact of overcrowding. So St. Martin is not the only country faced with overpopulation at the prison. Curacao instituted a percentage of discount to their prisoners, a percentage based on rehabilitation, and incentive for GED and different stuff to rehabilitate their prisoners back to society. Will this Minister of Justice consider the same option, seeing now we are in a dire state when the prison capacity was, 81, 82, and now with the fire, I can imagine it'll be even less. To address prison overcrowding at the facility, the next point was based on crime. What is seen to be a rising crime? Maybe it's just more visible. So is there data to support what we are seeing, a rising crime? What we believe is happening is that persons are now realizing, if I don't kill someone, I'll be arrested for 10 days and released. And this is a major part of where the riot stemmed from. And I'll elaborate on it a little later. Does the minister know that recently Aruba has introduced a 10% discount on prison sentences due to their lack of cell capacity? I would like to know, why don't our minister look into such options? Madam Chair, through you, vulnerable stage of the Justice Ministry. Can the minister provide Parliament with the status of the update on the implementation of the recommendations provided by 2018 by the Kingdom Council for law enforcement in general? Also, the CPT recommended the authorities of St. Martin to adapt and implement coherent strategies designed to combat prison overcrowding and take due actions. Now, I know this is before your time, Minister, but however, are you aware of such recommendations? And what is actively being done to address such recommendations through you, Madam Chair? What training is offered or will be offered to prison staff in 2025? Can a list of these trainings be provided to the members of Parliament? Through you again, Madam Chair. When we speak of LBAs, I would also like for you to take along the prison personnel. Start the discussions as soon as possible, through you again, Madam Chair, with the prison personnel. There are prison guards working there for upwards of 30 years and not properly placed. This creates a blockage and no room for growth. Madam Chair, through you, I'd like to ask the Honorable Minister of Justice a question. What is the procedures and protocols when a riot or disturbance occur? What is code red, code yellow, code green? What are the different standards? And when, through you again, Madam Chair, is the minister to be notified? When, at what level, what code at the prison is the minister to be notified? When the minister was here previously, we asked about the prison placement, and it was stated that recently external company was hired, but to my knowledge in 2023, the company Sage was hired and a report was submitted. So what is the holdup at this moment? Or is the Honorable Minister aware of this company, aware that this company was hired and aware of the report? You see, Madam Chair, I asked the question about the process, procedures, and timeline, and when the minister is to be involved. I had no idea that the person would be in the Tribune today. So it was not planned or anything, but I wanted to play a live footage on a recent interview.
The guard didn't say this, but the guard who he came in with agreed. He then said, yes, I think we should go. The guard then said, yes, I think we should go. And here's how I know the time. I said to the big guard, the big inmate, the president of the Inmates Association, so you're telling me then that I need to stop now at 10? I said the time. This is how I know the time. At 10:05 a.m., you're telling me to stop now, don't take the next group, because you can see that it is getting worse. He said, yes, boy, teach.
Madam Chair, at 10:05, the instructor was advised by the president of the Inmate Association and a guard, because in the interview, she not only listened to the inmate, but she looked at the guard, and the guard advised at 10:05 a.m. that the instructor should leave because there is unrest. And the Minister of Justice is notified at 4 p.m. Dispatch, emergency team are dispatched between 4:30 and 5. 10:05. What training is there? What protocol is there that we can start to evacuate staff, teachers, whatever, third-party staff at 10:05? Realize that there is a danger. So there's no type of training to de-escalate. I would like to also know, if this was at 10:05, what time was the director, through you, Madam Chair, through Justice, what time was then the director notified? You see, Madam Chair, this is not only a blunder, and it's not the minister's fault. The minister didn't go and set the fire. But heavy is the head that wears the crown. The minister is in charge right now. The minister is sitting there right now. If it was any one of us sitting in the justice position, we would be right there right now. And what we need to start to look at is de-escalation of situation, because prevention is better than cure. And what we don't understand is, as a prisoner, you arrest me for 5 years for armed robbery. I am in there for 4 years and 6 months. And yet, I am reading every day or every week that persons are being arrested for the same crime as me and released in 10 days. 10 days. There are persons now being held for firearm possessions, which has what, a minimum standard of 1 year. And I have to read that persons are being held and released after 10 days, and held again and released. A lot of the frustrations from the prisoners, Madam Chair, stem from lack of communication, no forward planning. I remember when Mr. DeWeaver was Minister of Justice, and there was what would be called a train. And I remember when persons were, due to overcrowding situations, persons with 6 months in their 6 months or less in their time was being released. At this moment, we are asking prisoners, get your GED, rehabilitate, join the church program, preach, do this, do that. For what? Do you know what it is, Madam Chair? You take a kid that is 17 years old, put him in the prison for 10 years plus, and release him without any rehabilitation, any skills. I was told a story by a guard that when they were shipping prisoners away, some of them didn't even know that they had a causeway bridge. That's how long they've been locked up. And we expect them not to be sent back without any proper training. Today's meeting was not just about the prison, Madam Chair. It's a bigger problem, a bigger issue, and a bigger structure. And my colleague said it. It's one of the biggest ministries, and it affects every one of us. Every one of us, Madam Chair. And I have had meetings with the Honorable Minister of Justice. And the Honorable Minister of Justice is one that always responds to my call. And I've had numerous conversations. But I have to call an ace. And I told the Honorable Minister of Justice it's two things. One, either your PR is not up to par, or two, it looks as if you're not doing a good job. When I sit with the Minister of Justice and she explained me certain situations, I said I understood. But the public is not aware. So, Honorable Minister of Justice, it's not enough to just tell me. It's not enough to just have a conversation with the up faction. You have to notify the public, through you, Madam Chair, of what is going on and your plans within the ministry. As to the public of St. Martin, yes, Madam Chair, it will be viewed as you're not doing enough. And that comes with consequences. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Ottley. I continue and I give the floor to MP Roseberg. MP Roseberg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Blessed day to the Minister of Justice and the support staff. Blessed day to everyone present in the public here today. Also a blessed day to my colleagues and the listening public viewing online. Madam Chair, through you, I also would like to start with complimenting the ministry in giving the social media updates. I do believe that that is something that will bring more light and the community will understand what's currently going on. My colleagues asked a lot of questions, so I'm not going to repeat certain questions that I have, but I do want to share some light on the matter, because if I will not do that, it will not be normal, seeing that I do believe that I have some kind of insight in regards to internationally wise, legally wise, and also some misconception. And instead of burdening the minister with that topic, I can assist in providing that information, because often there's a misconception in that regards, in regards to the after 10 days being released and not being punished versus being incarcerated and finalizing your punishment. The prosecutor, and I would like to make that clear because I do believe there's some misunderstanding in regards to that. And once someone is in pretrial detention, the prosecutor is the ones that goes over the pretrial detention. The Ministry of Justice has nothing to do with that, other than when someone is convicted. So that needs to be clear, that in pretrial, the prosecutor office deals with that. But I do believe, and by not bringing that forward, it will not be as myself, that clarity needs to be given, and currently in this situation, this is not something that is from now. When I was an attorney alone, I have been taking the government to court in regards to the prison, and I have been fighting for the human rights because it is a serious issue, and up to now it's a serious issue. So therefore, we cannot wait on situations like this to happen for us to take action. And I'm happy to see that the minister has that legal background in regards to human rights. So it doesn't sound new to her when I'm referring, and my colleagues did it as well, referring to the articles as mentioned on international level. Because however you turn or twist it, Article 3 of the European Convention of Human Rights make it clear that no person shall be subjected to torture or inhumane or degrading treatment or punishment. So we all know here today that there is a prison capacity issue. That's also the reason that the Justice Committee has requested a roundtable to discuss the prison capacity issue. That still needs to be scheduled, but seeing that we are here where we are right now, we need to look at what short-term proposals will be brought forward to deal with this prison capacity issue, so that eventually the ones that decide to commit crimes will know that they will be incarcerated, and the ones that are currently serving their time also will see that, hey, we are being treated fairly. Because at this moment, as was mentioned by others, currently it seems, but the investigation needs to show, that there is unrest in regards to that matter, that it's like, okay, we're not being treated fairly. And as has been mentioned, there are solutions in the law. The articles that were referred to, Article 137 and 132, make it clear that the Minister of Justice can decide to make sure that the early release takes place on an early date because of the fact that there is no or not sufficient capacity. And I know that the minister also has persons in her cabinet that are familiar with that matter, but at the end, it's you as a minister that needs to decide. Curaçao had, my colleague mentioned it shortly, had het treintje beleid, which mentions that, for example, the ones that weren't born on St. Martin will get 10% discount, and then the ones that are from St. Martin, it will be regulated percentage-wise. And I would like to advise the minister as well, through you, Madam Chair, to look at others in Curacao. One of my mentors, Pepe Souveran, is very known with that topic. To look into, okay, how was it implemented in Curacao? You have, for example, if I refer to a sentence that was given, if someone got, for example, 10 years of imprisonment, you have the two-thirds, you have to do two-thirds of your sentence. But then in connection to that, there's a maximum of 18 months that can be deducted depending on the amount that you have to serve, and deducting that from the two-thirds. And again, I am not here to say, okay, everybody needs to receive discounts on their sentencing, but I'm looking at it from a broader basis, because what we need to realize, and for the ones that don't know, seeing that I have taken the government to court, punishment had followed, and we don't want for the government to be taken to court, or for the Netherlands or the Kingdom of the Netherlands to be taken to court for more fines will be imposed, knowing that we know that the situation at hand need to be tackled. So therefore, there is, and people might not agree with it, but it is what it is. There's only one solution at this point in time until we have a new prison in 2028. The only solution is that based on the law, you have the current law in place, and other than that, previously, there was a temporary solution with capacity that it was an MBA or LBHAM, I'm sure, but I know that the ones in your cabinet are aware of that. That needs to be implemented to make sure that the bridge is gapped between the building of the new prison and the situation at hand now. Because if you do not do that, Minister, it can have severe consequences, and it will be unfortunate if it further escalates, and you have the option to decide, how am I going to do that? How am I going to make sure that the current capacity issue will be solved? And as I mentioned, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You have Curacao, you have Aruba, you have Bonaire, you have other neighboring islands, you have the Netherlands, and the law is there clear in. I know the ankle monitoring policy that has been written is strictly focused on the law, but in this situation, seeing that we are in a crisis, the law gives you opportunities to wijk off, deviate from the law, and as long as you motivate correctly why that is being done and in what circumstances that is being done, then it can be explained. But for us to patch, we cannot patch anymore. We have to make sure that there's a clear guideline so that everyone knows, the ones that are planning to commit crimes, the ones that have committed crimes and are bettering their lives, that everybody knows what procedure is being followed, so that across the board is being dealt with in a fairly manner, and that everyone knows what they can expect. Because at this moment, that does not seem to be clear, and I'm seeing with my colleagues even that there is confusion in regards to the first 10 days, who deals with it? Is it the prosecutor? Is it the Minister of Justice? Or how is it with once someone is incarcerated and already received the verdict? How does that work? So if that clarity can be given once and for all, so that it's clear in regards to this matter, where we stand, and that everyone knows where we're going and what the Minister of Justice decides to do with this current capacity issue. Other than that, I also would like to know that, seeing the current crisis that we're in, is the ministry still up to date with the LBAs? Because recently you were here, and through you, Madam Chair, you made it clear when certain LBAs will be can be expected, and also the LBAs from the prison guards were mentioned. So for it to be mentioned here today again, I understand it's a serious matter, but on the other hand, you mentioned a timeline, so I do hope that that timeline is still being followed, so that there's no misunderstanding in regards to that. Also, it's important to know that, okay, you mentioned that new guards from Aruba have been brought over, and others will be brought over as well, to bring this issue at hand and deal with it. But my question is, what plan has been in place to make sure that indeed capacity-wise, the ratio, because currently the ratio was, I think, 8. The ratio that has been discussed is currently not what it should be. So to make sure that that ratio is being brought to the level on international levels that it should be. So what is the plan for that, if the ministry can make that clear? And furthermore, the temporary facility, Simpson Bay and Police Station, for what timeline, period of time that will be in place, because again, I cannot stay quiet in regards to that, because I was one of the attorneys mentioning that those institutions are not how they should be. So if I stay quiet now, that would look a little weird. So therefore, I'm asking through you, Madam Chair, how that will be concluded temporarily and future-wise. And just last point, I know it's allowed to suspend temporary visits to bring back order. So that's also being mentioned in the regulations, but maybe clarity can be given when the order is restored, how that will take place, because also on a human rights level, you should have access to your family members, of course. That's it for now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Roseberg. The next MP to speak is MP Lacroes.
A blessed afternoon again, Madam Chair Lady. And the Minister and her support staff. Madam Chair Lady, I'd like to start by just getting one or two things that I'd like to bring across first, and then I'm going to go over to a couple questions that I have. Going back to, first I'd like to thank again the Minister for coming and responding to the call from the members of Parliament. I think it shows a level of respect, and that sits very well with me. Okay, that is first. And I'd also like to thank the guards, the Marines, the inmates, everyone that helped during this crisis. And I say crisis because I know exactly what it could have been and become. And Madam Chair Lady, I remember during the budget debate last year, I mentioned and I said, I even think I sung a little of the song. My singing voice is not that best, but I said, they don't build any schools anymore. All they're building is prisons and prisons and prisons. So even though my fellow colleagues are now focused on the situation with the Point Blanche Prison, please note to the Minister of Education that we will be having some great talks concerning making sure that less of our people are incarcerated, and those that are incarcerated, that when they come out, they are productive citizens of this country. Then in the minister's presentation, she mentioned that, through you, Madam Chair Lady, that 2 of the women, space have been made for 2 of the women to go to Point Blanche, to go to Bonaire. But that to me makes no sense. I've been in the prison, so I see that there was no fire at where the women are held. So if I'm thinking that we're moving people now because of the fire and space, we can't put 2 male where those women are. So the moving of the 2 women, I don't understand what the idea is behind that. So if the minister could elaborate on that. Then one of the statements made by my fellow colleague, MP Ottley, that I think either passed over my head or passed over everyone's head, but I'm going to reiterate the question and so I could get some clarity to it. And I heard the other MP also made some comments concerning it. But the level of frustration, because someone is sitting in Point Blanche and hearing that others whom have been convicted but not called for the same things they have done. Is that the case? Because I heard the other MP mention that there is some type of difference between being already convicted, so you've had your day in court, or being released pending a court case to be picked up. But either way, to the general public, that doesn't sit well. That doesn't sit well. And obviously, it doesn't sit well with the inmates that are there either. So if, through you, Madam Chair Lady, the minister could elaborate on that a little, because that is definitely, I wouldn't want my son to think, hey, I could go and rob and be out for the next year and a half because he has a capacity problem right now. So if the minister could elaborate on that. Then, what initiatives are being undertaken to strengthen the community policing and restore trust between law enforcement, residents, and inmates? At the end of the day, Madam Chair Lady, through you to the minister, we definitely have a problem with trust. We have a problem with trust. We have a problem with trust from inmates to guards, guards to inmates, to director, way back, members of parliament. What are we going to do to fix this? What is the plan? Because I do not want to believe that any one of us here on this side think that those on that side don't care. I do not want to believe that. But if we don't get a plan on, hey, this is how we're going to move forward, and not only when it comes to building the facility, but everything else around it. The following question: what ongoing training and support are provided to the prison staff to handle crisis and maintain ethical standards? I commend any inmate and anyone who jumped in to help. But the amount of questions that I got concerning that was alarming. How can it be possible? Is it true that the guards left their post? How can that be possible? Are there any repercussions to that? Did they panic? Please elaborate. Is there an independent body overseeing prison conditions and management decisions? Or is this only, does this lie only in the hands of the Minister of Justice? What safeguards exist for staff or inmates who wish to report misconduct or abuse without fear for retaliation? I'd like those questions answered. And Madam Chair Lady, you know, I hope at the end of this whole fiasco, I hope one day to look at the Minister of Justice and say, Batwoman. You know, that the minister, ex-minister, was referred to as Batman because the Justice Ministry felt that he got, or they got his support. And I would like to see that also for you, through you, Madam Chair Lady, Minister of Justice. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Lacroes. The next speaker is MP Kotai. MP Kotai, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to my colleagues, to the Minister, to those in the Tribune, and those tuning in online. Through you, Madam Chair, I also would like to commend the Minister for taking swift action in regard to the riot at the prison. which was, of course, not in her control whatsoever. I'd also like to commend the police force for their swift response not too long ago in the violent robbery within Phillipsburg, and on another note, even on the attempted robbery at another location within Phillipsburg. Of course, through you, Madam Chair, crime did not start in your tenure. It was there with your predecessor, the one before him, the one before her, and so on. But now in St. Martin, as MP Ottley even said, individuals are not scared to hold a weapon. They're not afraid to commit a crime. And I don't want to sound like I'm repeating what other MPs said, but this is the truth. And this is due to, of course, our limited space within the prison. But I would like to know what we can do to solve this. Criminals are getting released earlier because of the lack. But are we able to look at another location within St. Martin to create a makeshift facility for this until the new prison is built? Because that can take that could take a while. And also, I don't want to repeat the question about the ankle monitor as well, so I'll just wait for the answers to MP Ottley's question. And I would also like to know, what are the requirements for a criminal to be released due to the lack of space, whether it is by the ministry or by the OM, as many may say? I think it's fit to understand these intricate details because crime is getting worse. We're lacking space, and now we have less now in the prison due to the riot. We can point all the fingers to whoever we want through you, Madam Chair, but we still need to solve these issues as soon as possible. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Kotai. I believe we have another speaker, and that is MP Wafer. MP Wafer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Griffier, Honorable Minister, support staff, those here present today in the Tribune, those listening and viewing via whichever media. I too want to just commend the Minister, but also especially the whole police force, the ambulance department, fire department for their swift actions in the situation. It could have gone a lot worse, I think, than it went. I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what I heard just now from a previous MP, where they mentioned that it was reported or that the prison guards left the post, if that was true, and also that they gave the key to the inmate in that situation. And if that is in case true, then my question comes to mind, are there regular fire drills conducted within the prison? I know from when we talk about schools and everything, that's a regular thing. We have earthquake drills, we have fire drills, but is this also done within the prison system, within the prison, yeah, whether Point Blanche or the one in Simpson Bay? So that's just something that came to mind that I just think we need to see if it's not done, that seeing what just happened, that we see to implement that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Wafer. I now give the floor to MP Myers.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, and to the Honourable Minister and support staff, to my colleagues here in Parliament, radio listeners, those of you following via social media, and those of you in the Tribune, good afternoon. First of all, like my colleagues, I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to your leadership as Minister of Justice, the police force, the first responders, and even the two prisoners that were instrumental in the evacuation during the prison fire. I have a few questions. I'm not going to be lengthy at all. I just needed some clarity on some stuff because a lot of the stuff, and you know, a lot of the stuff is ongoing. So firstly, I want to know, how old is the prison? How old is the present facilities that that it is in. I also want to know, in your presentation, you said the fire that broke out. Now, if it was an electrical fire, that's a fire that broke out. I think what's important, this fire was deliberately set. It was a fire that was deliberately set, which begs me to question the motive and why. And you know, there have been reports, and it's amazing how there have been reports of requests for that persons committing crimes that are being sent home, and those who are close to the end of their term feel that they should be let out. I mean, which leads me, were there any dialogue with you or the prosecutor's office in regards to this? So did you meet with the Prison Association where this was communicated to you as minister before it escalated to the point in which it did? Because usually stuff takes time before it escalates. Then the batches. How many, because again, I hate to refer to them as batches, because as I stated earlier, they're families, they're people just going about and doing their jobs and trying to contribute. How many batches are there left to be completed? I remember in your last, and many members of parliament stated in regards to the prison, I remember very clearly in your last presentation to parliament where you clearly stated that you have started with the process with the prison, and because there are some people that are there that make, whether it was 1,000 guilders or $1,000 a month, and you didn't feel that that was up to today's standard, and you were going to regulate that. So I want to know how many batches are there? How many batches are left to be completed that the police officers will be taken care of? Because I said we stand with I understand what it is since 2010 to be owed something and not receive it. And then there was all kind of the function book and that's a whole story that led to where we are. But at the end of the day, these are people that deserve these adjustments. My colleague MP Ottley spoke about the ratio from prisoners to prison guards. I want to just expound on that a little bit. Can you tell me how long has that ratio, because I'm pretty sure that it's not sufficient, but I want to know how long has that ratio not been sufficient? And how long has the prison been overcrowded? And then there was another question in regards to early release. I want, and the minister's authority to give early release. I want to know of all of the previous ministers in which we had, which of those ministers applied this very rule based on that authority. Can you give me the disparity based on the prisoners that are in the facility now? Can you tell me the capacity of the prisoners, the amount of prisoners that are in the facility now? And of those, give me the disparity of what criminals are violent offenders and what are not nonviolent offenders. Madam Chair, those are my questions, and I thank you.
Thank you, MP Myers. The next MP up to speak is MP Irian. MP Irian, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, President of Parliament, Secretary General, colleagues, Honorable Minister of Justice, support staff, and the viewing public. Madam Chair, I'd like to start off first also by thanking the Ministry of Justice for their, Ministry of Justice and actually the other essential workers for their quick response and continued efforts in regarding the situation. And Minister, I also like to say that I appreciate and thank you for your quick response to us as members of Parliament for this meeting, and but even go as far as to urge you to update your colleagues on their roles and their accountability and responsibility to members of Parliament in reporting back to us. I think that's a good example, and it's that an example that we have seen for the last few months when it comes to your colleagues. It shows that at the very least you respect us as members of Parliament and want to inform not just Parliament, but also you're willing to take on the tough and critical questions posed by us, that we then also get to inform the general public of these things, other than just social media and articles that maybe you want to put out there, but also to answer the questions that we are posed by our constituents that expect us to represent them. So again, I hope that your colleagues really could pay attention and step up. My colleagues have posed a lot of questions already, very critical questions. Some of the concerns that I've had were posed in terms of the one, for example, with Ms. Yadira Boston on radio. I also heard that. The public was very concerned about this. I'm really hoping that we have real answers on this. And my questions coming here were in regards to exactly what MP Roseberg mentioned, the cases we had prior. We've had a lot of court cases. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we even have the whole prison support from the Netherlands, this whole project, because of these court cases. And unfortunately, this fire is now putting us back in a similar situation. I can imagine already lawyers already are preparing for this. So I would like us to stay ahead of the curve and find, like other MPs mentioned, let's find some other solutions locally if we can. And you mentioned that, I believe it's Bonaire, another island is taking on some prisoners. What is the cost to this? What is the cost of this? Because I'm pretty sure this was not something maybe in your budget because it wasn't planned for. So what is the cost for this? And what is the timeline for that to be paid? Because if it isn't budgeted, I'm assuming, I don't know how it's going to be paid. So I don't know if we have some sort of leniency in terms of payment. So is this something we're going to expect in the budget or the budget amendment to come? And if this is a possibility and money is not necessarily an issue, can we expand this? Can we go from 6 to 20, all right? To avoid, again, these court cases, these constitutional issues. Because it wasn't just court cases. This went to, I believe, in the Supreme Court in terms of constitutional issues and human rights. So to avoid any kind of embarrassments going forward, I would rather than take whatever extra money we have to deal with this situation, because in the long run, it'll affect all ministries. All ministries. So if we have to look at not doing certain events, not having certain things done, not even done the right way, I would rather than do this the right way to again secure us in the long run. And I also expect to see from your ministry, Minister, some extra money in the 2026 budget concerning this. Is it possible, because we now have some money already on CapEx, right? I don't know how much has been spent, and we have some money coming. Is it possible to do a sort of an amendment or even use the money that's on CapEx right now and have, let's say, a sort of a restoration project be done? I'm pretty sure it's possible, all right? It just takes a little bit of effort. We have the budget 2025 coming very soon. I think that's the ideal time to submit this amendment to the CapEx and have this done. We could then, if we have to run a 24-hour shift service with a construction or multiple construction companies to get this done, it can happen. It just takes a little bit of effort. And again, when I hear for the last 6 months or however long we've been here in Parliament, I'll say this, from the opposition side, you have an opposition that doesn't just criticize. We've always given strong recommendations, proposals, and support. And again, this is another one coming to you. So again, I look forward to the questions. I'm not going to repeat everything everyone has said, but we are in a critical time. You have some budget. You're able to execute these repairs in a faster time to avoid further financial consequences. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Irian. The next speaker is MP Peterson, to whom I give the floor at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A good afternoon to yourself, to my honorable colleagues, to the Minister and the support staff, and everybody else tuned in. Madam Chair, to reiterate what everybody today has said, I too want to thank the Minister for her proactive efforts. Minister, thank you again for the update, the report on what happened there in Point Blanche last week. I believe if we all read the report, then a lot of the questions that you got today would have already been answered. For example, that I think it was 51 prisoners that were relocated, and I think about 12 of them ended up by the foreign detention center, and that 3 had, I think, burns, etc., and needed medical attention. So thanks once again for that proactive update. It was very informative and kind of gave us where are we now situation. To piggyback off of what MP Myers asked, I also want to know what was the origin of the fire, if any investigation was done towards that, and what were the conclusions. Doesn't have to be public, but still, for us to get an indication as to what really happened there. And we sort of had some kind of correspondence, but just for the public's sake, what was their issue? What caused the discontent, so to say, amongst the prisoners that led to whatever it was, whether it was a riot or something that led up to a riot, that led up to the fire? And then, Madam Chair, I just wanted to take some time to kind of question the urgency of the meeting, because we have now scheduled an urgent public meeting with the Minister of Justice within 48 hours. But last week was when the fire had happened, and that was Wednesday. So when I saw the urgent meeting request come up, I saw that the topics were not only the fire, which I thought it would be the only topic, but also the state of crime, and then also the vulnerability of the whole Justice Ministry. But then the Minister was still expected to come here within 48 hours whilst dealing with a crisis situation, but then also expected to realistically give us an update on the state of crime and also the whole Justice Ministry. So I personally do not think that that was realistic to begin with, Madam Chair. And I kind of want to caution my MPs when it comes to being reactive when it comes to these crisis situations, because this is the time where the ministers actually need all hands on deck. So again, Minister, thank you once again. And I'll await the answers in the first round and then see what we do in the second round. Kudos to you, Minister. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Peterson. I now give the floor to MP Labega. MP Labega, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to everyone, the Griffier, my fellow colleagues, the Minister of Justice, and all necessary stakeholders. I would like to congratulate or commend the Minister and everyone affiliated in getting a hold of the situation in a short period of time. And as they always say, damn if you do, damn if you don't. You're hearing that it's commendable that all hands were on deck to solve the crisis in the best forms possible, but then you're hearing, oh, but under what authority did you have to make the decisions that you made? This is obviously an extraordinary situation. Maybe there haven't been trainings for something like this, a fire breaking out in a prison where everybody's affected, but I do know moving forward that you guys will take the necessary precautionary measures to ensure that training procedures are done. I'd just like to caution everyone, the public, inmates, families, also members of Parliament, that moving forward, it's going to be a little uncomfortable situation. We have different inmates at different places. Family ties, communication will be limited for a time being, given the circumstance. So I just want everybody to have a bit of patience with the process. We must say that we have been getting extremely good updates since the incident, so it's not a lack of information coming from the government side and coming from the prison side. So if everybody could just have a little patience while you guys do what you have to do, and I'm sure everything will work out fine. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Dimar Labega, for your contribution. Before I break briefly in order to caucus with the Minister about the answers to be provided by the Minister, it was alluded to by maybe more than one speaker regarding outstanding answers by the Minister to questions posed in a previous meeting. And I want to mention that on the 15th of May, we received from the Minister's office a request that the date which was given by the Minister, which would have been May 16th for providing the answers, if an extension could have been given. In other words, that the answers would have been provided a little later, given the circumstances. That is one thing. And several members of parliament have also referred to a letter provided, giving an update on the situation at the prison by the minister. And indeed, that happened. Many of what you saw the minister present in the presentation were provided to Parliament via letter. And that, of course, is a document here registered for all members of Parliament to peruse, comment on, if necessary, but that is registered at the Parliament, and it was dispatched to all members of Parliament immediately upon receipt from the minister. With those two brief clarifications on the topic at hand, I am now going to adjourn just for 3 minutes to caucus with the minister. Meeting adjourned for 3 minutes. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this meeting, a public meeting of Parliament called urgently on request of 3 members of Parliament to hear from the Minister, to deliberate with the Minister on the matter of the ongoing crisis at our prison facility. And there were some other topics mentioned in the letter as well. However, as the Minister explained, when she started her introduction, she will try to especially deal with the matter of the crisis at hand and then see how some of the other questions can be addressed. The members of Parliament posed their questions, and I allowed the Minister a brief moment to consider how we will go about responding to these. So I now give the floor to the Minister of Justice, Minister Tacklin, who will, I believe, address some issues raised by members of Parliament, as well indicate how we will go forward in terms of providing answers to all of the questions asked. Minister Tacklin, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Honourable Chair Lady. Indeed, we discussed, again, because we were supposed to start a crisis team meeting 6 minutes ago, that, that we will at least address some of the kind of larger issues that I heard mentioned today. I wanted to go into those, and then I'll come back in a couple of weeks to answer all the questions posed in the public setting. But then I also wanted to leave with the members of Parliament, if there are any particular burning questions that you have that cannot wait until I come back in a few weeks to answer the questions publicly, then to please send me those by email, and then I'm happy to address them so that you have those answers. I wanted then to just touch, at least I had here, when it came indeed to any medical treatment. I know MP Peterson mentioned it, but indeed 3 individuals received minor burns. These were able to be treated at the facility. There was indeed 1 inmate who at some point was, I believe this was on Friday or Saturday, was refusing treatment from the nurse. And in that case, we had him go to the emergency room where they treated him the same way that the nurse would have treated him. Of course, I also don't know all the medical details of prisoners. The prison doctor is unable to share those private information, but the prison doctor has confirmed to us that everybody is receiving the appropriate treatment necessary to deal with those injuries. On Sunday, I actually, as I said, I had gone to the back to speak to inmates, and I actually spoke to one of the gentlemen who had burns. I spoke to him about his treatment, how he was feeling, if he needed anything, and he confirmed to me that the treatment was going well, and that the nurse was taking good care of him. They get those wounds cleaned twice a day by the nurse on site. Then I also wanted to, just to be clear, I think I had briefly mentioned it in the introduction in the presentation, but when it comes to the structure of the facility, we've had initial assessments done by the fire department, VROMI, and the lead engineer from U.N.O.P.S. All of those reports so far indicate that the initial assessment is that the structure was uncompromised. So because of the, I guess, apparently we had very good paint up there, the fire retardant paint, but they're saying the concrete doesn't look like it has had any damage behind that structure. So that's those, but of course, a full cleaning needs to take place for them to really then see the exposed concrete. But we have 3 initial indications telling us that structurally, it's okay. Which is why now we're in that phase of trying to get that cleaning done so then we can do a deeper check. And there's also discussions indeed about doing a test of the concrete and having that go through ICE, because ICE has the capability to do that testing on site. So we're working together with the lead engineer from U.N.O.P.S to be able to coordinate that and have that done. Then I was asked there was a question about the legal basis for the suspension. It's based on Articles 31 and 32 of the gevangenismaatregel, so the prison regulations. Article 31 gives the initial authority to the prison director, and then that authority is for 3 times 24 hours. And after that, the law says that the minister has to decide on that. And we have signed MBAs every time that this goes on. I am also not very happy or don't feel good. I also believe that inmates are human beings, and it's why I've taken the time to really go and speak to them as human beings and as their minister, to take them along into this process and explain what is going on. And this is why we're looking really every 24 hours at the necessity of these measures. Is it strictly necessary for the safety and security of the facility? Then it must continue. So that is really the assessment that we're making. I'm not trying to double, triple punish anybody up there. And we're really looking at how to be able to do this safely. Then the new prison project, we are on schedule. We're actually in the middle of the tender procedure right now. We hope to award the contract at the end of July and for construction to hopefully start in October. The planning was that by the end of next year and not in 2028, because it's a longer project that is completely completed in 2028. But there is a hope that phase 1 of the project will be completed at the end of next year, so at the end of 2026. And phase 1 would mean that we will go from 80 people capacity to 120. But of course, the question is, what is the timeline for us to be able to use that space? Because it requires more staff, and it requires extra funding. And these are all the discussions that we're having now in terms of looking at how and at what time do we start to utilize that extra capacity. And then capacity brings me then to the grievances. Again, I had discussions with both the Inmate Association along with the inmates themselves. And the 2 points that were brought up to me, maybe actually 3. One is indeed the sentiment, the feeling that they have that, yeah, you picking up guys on front, or that guys that committed crimes or robbery on Front Street, getting let out to the police cells, and we up here in Point Blanche. I took the time to try to explain to them the difference between pretrial detention and somebody being convicted and sitting up there, but I also acknowledged to them that I understand. In their situation, I would feel the same way. I told them I could explain to you what the law says, because that's what the law says, but it doesn't change that I'm a human being and not just Minister of Justice, and I can feel with them. So I took the time to explain to them, even talk about the early conditional release, and we're actually using this now as an opportunity to see how we can be indeed more transparent and to communicate to them how the early release works. Because in principle, the way that it's been working, and I heard mention of Article 137, is indeed with a lack of space. But I explained to them also, because they also feel sometimes that one person they say, yeah, but this partner gets out, he had so many years left, and I got 2 months left, and I still up here. So I tried to explain to them that in the eyes of the law, they're actually all equal, because the law looks at a percentage of your sentence served. And I told them somebody who has 20 years, 1/3 of 20 years is a lot more than 1/3 of 2 years, 18 months. So of course you feel like, yeah, but I got such little time left, he got so long left, how is that fair? So, we explained to them there's actually lists that the prison has, that the prosecutor has, where a person's early release date is stipulated, percentages of when that person came in. And 137 says, yes, they does give a discretion to the minister in that sense. When, with the lack of capacity, you look at the person who has percentage-wise served the longest portion of their sentence. So what we're doing now, and we actually, we were in these discussions already with the prosecutor's office to look for how can we come up with a policy guideline, a beleidsregel, to give that extra discount, as we're saying. To look at, based on, in a way that is fair to everybody across the board, and that we can set that it's transparent, that everybody, not for one person it's 60%, for somebody else it's 58%, but that there's a clear system across the board. So we were actually working on this already, and now of course we've sped that up, and I actually received a draft that we've been bouncing around to see how we can do that. And I had discussed with the inmates as well that we're happy to try to put in layman's terms what the law says, how it works for them. But then I was told by the association, well, focus right now on restoring everything at the prison, and then we could have those discussions after. So the same, for the guys that I spoke to in the back, that was one that came up. Another thing that they told me was there was frustration on the inmate side when it came to Parliament, to be honest. And they felt like the Justice Committee came up there, that, they shared their grievances, and that the Justice Committee, like, nobody had checked them since. That's that they feel like, oh, y'all came up here, but then after that, we don't see or hear anything again. So that was, we had those discussions as well. And then the third thing that they also said to me was that they don't have enough to do. They were like, Minister, we got nothing to do up here. And, I told them that it was unfortunate that this happened, because I was actually in the midst now of, signing an agreement to have UNODC come in earlier to really start working on the soft components. I've stressed to them that before the end of this year, I want to have more programs, more to do for the inmates there, because I've said I cannot tell somebody who is in Point Blanche now, yeah, but a new prison coming. I have an obligation towards that person now. So we were working on that, and I told them, but now all my energy has to go into restoring order in the facility, and they understood, they laughed, and so we had a good conversation where that is concerned as well. It's also somewhat ironic because I was asked if I was aware of the CPT norms. And I'm scheduled to be in Strasbourg on June 11th to defend Saint-Martin or to update the Council of Europe because we are under supervision from the Council of Europe. This, of course, now gets a different, is cast into a different light. But of course, we do need to show to them what steps we are taking when it came already to the situation that we had in the police cells and in Point Blanche as a result of a court case that the Kingdom lost up there, which was mentioned here. So these are also, we are under the watchful eye of them as well. And one of the questions came up of, are there any institutions, that supervise the prison or this ministry? And actually, justice is under supervision by quite a number of different bodies. We have the Law Enforcement Council, the Raad voor de Rechtshandhaving, which is instituted by Kingdom Law. We also have the Voortgangscommissie Plannen van Aanpak, which is they're actually supposed to be here again in June. And then we also have a Commissie van Toezicht of the prison itself. And they go there every month, they write reports, they talk to everybody. And they also have a complaint procedure in place for inmates to be able to file complaints with them about anything that occurs within the prison. So, we're all working together now and have understanding, I think, for the situation. The Simpson Bay option, the police cells, those are things that out of pure necessity that we've had to do it. But again, we want to be able to return everybody to a normal situation as soon as possible. What that timeline is right now is fluid. I had one company tell me it's going to take them 10 days to clean, but then I had somebody else come in today, told me they can do it in 3 days. So we're looking to see what is really necessary to have this done safely, to have it done effectively, and then to be able to restore everybody. So I was hoping initially that, by this weekend, everybody would be back to their old situation, but unfortunately, like I said, the situation continues to evolve, and we do have plans in place every time of, okay, if this doesn't work, then what's the next thing that we're going to do? So we really have a structured approach to this, and I think we'll be further supported once we have that extra expertise coming in on Thursday from abroad. Like I mentioned, we have a safety and security specialist who is specialized in, hostage situations in prisons, like things like that, where this is his bread and butter. That is also going to come in and give us a hand. And then, of course, the primary goal right now is putting them back into the cells. But of course, if there's a fallback, I would love to be able to send everybody away so we can really deal with this situation differently. But unfortunately, our Kingdom partners, we were managed to get space for 4 men today in Bonaire, but initially the answer was no, nobody has space. Aruba, Curacao, no space. Holland, no space. So those are the challenges that we're facing. And then, of course, for now, it looks as if that is the forecast, that we can get them back into there after it's properly cleaned. If we need to look at other types of solutions in the mid to long term, then we will do so. And again, we're trying to bring more transparency into that early release program. And I think that will also give some calm and some ease to the inmates. But I explained to them too, sometimes your feeling of injustice, there's not a lot that I could do to take away that feeling. I can have communication with you and I can try to explain, but if, a person, I understand that feeling, and it is unfair sometimes, the way that our legal system is put together. And I can't deny that either. When it comes to cost, indeed, I have expressed, however, that the costs aren't what keep me up at night. What keeps me up at night since Wednesday is making sure that this community stays safe, and that the inmates are safe, and that the staff at Point Blanche is safe. There are discussions when it comes to costs, of course, to see what assistance we could get from the Netherlands. We do have some subsidies within justice that were extended some time back that we were unable to spend, and those subsidies may be able to be used in this time of crisis. When it comes to people say, I think we've also lost a lot of goodwill as a country because not a lot of people are willing to work with the government if they don't get paid first.
Minister,
So that's
on that note,
yeah.
on that note, I would ask your indulgence as I allow MP Roseberg to make an interruption. MP Roseberg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Seeing that there's no other opportunity after closing the meeting, I would just like to make one thing clear or use it as an interruption option, seeing that it was mentioned and also seeing that I'm the chair of the Justice Committee and I have my vice chair and also several justice members messaging me in regards to this matter that the Justice Committee has been very active in raising the matter to going to the prison and bringing it to the ministry's attention in regards to the issues, because what we need to remember is that we as members of parliament have a role to represent all the people of St. Martin, and we have to make sure that we bring it to the attention of the ministry. And that was done by the Justice Committee, and also the Justice Committee made it clear that these priorities in regards to justice are high on the agenda, and therefore also in February it was approved that a roundtable panel discussion to assist the Justice Ministry, same as we have done actively in regards to the rising crime, which took place recently, 3 sessions. Also in regards to the Point Blanche Prison, capacity has been approved in February 2025, but seeing the current scheduling of Parliament and the other meetings that have been taking place, we are waiting on following up on that roundtable to assist the Ministry of Justice in regards to that matter. Just for clarity's sake, so the public is aware that the Justice Committee has been actively working, but yeah, we have one schedule. So that is what I would like to bring forward. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Roseberg. I will give MP Lacroes the floor as well one time to follow with an interruption. MP Lacroes.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. This is a real interruption. The minister mentioned the discount draft. Could you elaborate a little more on that? Because was this sent to the Lawyers Association after it's been worked on by the prosecutor, or where is it exactly? Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Lacroes. Minister, before I allow you to continue, let me allow MP Iran, who I see indicated he would like to make an interruption so that we could get them, going. So MP Iran, you may make your interruption at this time, and then we'll allow the minister to respond and continue.
Yes, thank you, Madam
Chair.
Minister, you also mentioned, and thank you for your responses, the subsidies and so forth that weren't done, but I'm not even sure that those subsidies, because they were allocated for a reason, right? So I'm not sure they're going to be able to be used for repairs or construction and cleaning and so forth. So my question regarding the funds that are there, is that a possibility, or will you look into that?
Thank you, MP Iran. So, Minister, you may continue with your answers, and also in as much as you can address the issues raised by members via interruption.
Yeah, and I'll start otherwise, since it's fresh, with the one with the cost. Indeed, we're looking at that. That is part of the discussion to see, that a request also go to BZK to be able to reallocate them. So they're working well with us to try to find a solution, but of course, it's always, what can you do first as a country before you have to go and get help? And the Minister of Finance has also expressed her support to look to see what is possible, from the Ministry of Finance perspective, to see how we can navigate through this. But of course, that cost picture is, we're trying as much as possible to quickly put that together as we are aware with, okay, what costs are we going to have? And so we're trying right now, we've been operating just from the ministry's budget. But as I've said, we already know from the budget debate that this ministry already had a budget that was very difficult for us to do even basic operations from, and I was very honest about that in December and January when we were here with the budget. So those are realities that we're looking at as well. But again, as I've said, for me, the most important thing right now is to just make sure that I can restore that situation and keep everybody in this community safe. So that's and then, the other parts I think will fall into place, and I thank you for these suggestions. So we'll see what is possible from there to amendment-wise, since we're in that phase. When it comes to MP Lacroes, so the law it has a discretion to the minister. Right now we're looking at how do we want to fill in that discretion, because the law says by LBHAM, the minister can put a maximum on it, but right now it's open. So we're looking at a way that we can put something together. And so I'm saying they helped us out by putting some thoughts on paper, because we've been huddling together on how we can do that. It's not that I then have to send it to somebody else. So really it's an internal discussion right now that we're having on what could work and what that might look like. I actually had a meeting yesterday also with the lawyer for the Inmates Association to discuss, some research that she was doing on behalf of them. And we also sat and talked and explained to her what the limitations are in our legislation. So I think that was a fruitful meeting, and we've expressed our willingness as a ministry to cooperate with her in that research and see what she has done and what ideas that has come out from the inmates and the Inmates Association. So we will be getting those documents from her over the course of the week. I saw that she sent an email to me while I was sitting here telling me that she will get the documents to me as quickly as possible, because I believe that they also sent around surveys among the inmates and things like that. So that's being worked on. Then I have here the batches. I had, again, as MP Meyer said, he doesn't like to call it batches. As I said, 13 I countersigned yesterday afternoon, actually, so I'm not sure where the misinformation came about it being sent back from the governor with any issues. So that one, they will be contacted and that will be disseminated. And, as I've said for the rest, and as I have continued to assure the justice workers that the process will not be affected or slowed down by this crisis. We have separate teams that are working on that, and that remains our priority to have that done. So as we had discussed in that meeting that I came to for the LBAs was batches 14 and 15 will be everybody who is left in the ministry that is not Have-A-Bay. And then Have-A-Bay will be one batch, which is 95 individuals. That will happen in one time and not piece, as we've been doing, because we really want to just have it regularized for everybody. The issue with the prison was also why they ended up, and I have that discussion with them too, because they feel like they're the stepchild of the ministry, and we all forget them up there on the hill. But the issue with that placement process and why it is at the end was because due to different management changes at different times throughout the history of the prison, that in that placement process, incorrect placements were handed out, and there were errors made in the process that then warranted indeed the consultancy company that was mentioned by one of the MPs to have to come in and redo the process. And actually that consultant at the end of last year finished that work. And in January, by the end of January this year, the Have-A-Bay workers received their actual placement letters, because they hadn't even received them prior to that. So this is why that process, this is why they were at the end, because of some issues that had occurred earlier in there. Yeah, and again, I heard the comments of the state of crime and all of these things, and we're happy to come and address those at another time. I was asked yesterday afternoon to come here today, so we really tried to focus on the immediate crisis, being the prison. It's not to say that the state of crime is also not immediate either. It definitely has our attention, and I know it has the chief's attention more than anything, and we too see what is happening in our sister islands on the northern side, and it concerns us as well. And I have to say that we have very good cooperation with our neighboring islands, and that there's a lot of information sharing going on. And so that's great to see that we can really work together within the region as well. And so know that those things also have our attention, and we'll come back and address that. And of course, in a public setting, provide whatever information that we can, given the sensitivity. I don't want to go into, for safety and security purposes, say, who is in what place of the prison or how many people are located where. But indeed, at this time, there are individuals in different spaces that were unaffected. The group that were in the unaffected area, they have remained in their cells. We have indeed, MB was published on Friday, redesignating or designating the police cells and the foreigner detention center temporarily as huis van bewaring, so that we can temporarily house inmates there. We recognize that, we don't like it either. We also, see that human rights element, but of course, these are exceptional circumstances and exceptional times that then warrant such deviation. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything else, but I think those are the main points. Again, the focus is really trying to restore order there as quickly as possible and then address those grievances. And hopefully that happens as quickly as possible during the course of next week. And we will continue to speak to the inmates, to keep them informed. I also want to mention actually that we also found some psychologists that we asked to provide services not only to the inmates but also to the staff of the Point Blanche Prison, because both groups went through a very traumatic experience last week Wednesday, and I see Dr. Boston sitting here in the Tribune as well, and she actually sent me an email that evening of the fire, and I had immediately responded, and I hear the questions here, and I want to say these things are all being investigated. I had thanked her for making this report and for sending that to me, and it will be included in the investigation of what transpired that day, how we can learn about that. I'm actually also looking into installing an independent committee or of locals from here on the island to be able to, with the relevant expertise, to be able to do to look for findings and make recommendations so that we can learn from what happened up there. I think we don't have anything to hide, and that we're happy to learn from this experience and see what we can put in place. And I think it would be a beautiful thing to see if we can have some of our own people, a kind of committee of wise men, to tell us how we can make changes, other than having somebody from outside tell us what to do. So I'm talking to some people now to have that committee implemented so that we can also, besides the criminal investigations into what may or may not have happened, in terms of a response of, was there disturbance in the morning? How was that handled? Was it sufficiently handled? All of these things are being looked at. I too have read the reports of, people saying, oh, people left their post. All of these things are being investigated, and I think it's premature for me to say now that, what exactly happened inside there. I think let's let these investigations take place with the diligence that they deserve, and not speculate. And as I had said to the members of Parliament, I too see a lot of misinformation going out there. It's disruptive, I think, to our operation, but we keep pushing regardless. So I really want to urge everybody to follow the updates that are coming from the ministry directly, and that we are putting out there, because we've been more than transparent and open in terms of really getting those updates out quickly. So we will continue to do that. We will continue to keep Parliament informed, and we will continue to keep the public informed. So I think that rounds off everything that I wanted to touch on. And again, if there are any really burning questions, then please send them to me and my cabinet in writing, and we will address them accordingly. Thank you
very much, Minister of Justice, the Honorable Natalie Tacklin. Members of Parliament, as is customary, you have the opportunity now to ask the Minister to clarify anything that she said, but I would ask you, in doing so, if you feel the need to do so, to please take into account what the Minister indicated in terms of time and they having to basically be in a meeting already. But so I'll ask and let me use the word of the Minister. Is there a burning clarification that anyone requires at this time? I see that is not the case. I want to thank you, members of Parliament, for your understanding. I want to thank the Minister. Of course, this meeting is going to be adjourned. But as the Minister indicated, if any question resulting from this meeting is a burning one, we can make use of the opportunity to question the Minister in writing, and to which she will try to respond as soon as possible. And in the meantime, we will continue to look at when this meeting can continue given the travel schedule of the minister. So, Minister, again, you and your support staff, thank you. To our support staff, thanks. To the members of Parliament, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. And this public meeting of Parliament is hereby adjourned.